A lot of people are talking about this interview that George Foreman did with TMZ Sports, where he's talking about Deontay Wilder and the comparisons between Wilder and Mike Tyson. George Foreman is essentially telling people to pump the brakes on the over-the-top Deontay Wilder praise. That's essentially what George is saying. Because so many Wilder fans are going way overboard in their praise of him. Talking about he's defended his world title 10 times. And again, George Foreman is pointing out who's he actually beat. You know, he needs to beat a Tyson Fury conclusively, or Anthony Joshua, or a Luis Ortiz. Then we can start mentioning his name among some of the greats. Yeah? And George Foreman also says rematches don't count. And what he meant by that is the Luis Ortiz fight. That's a guy you've already knocked out. You come back and fight him 2 years later when he's even older than he was to start with. That doesn't enhance your legacy. That doesn't enhance your greatness. That's what George Foreman is essentially saying in the interview. He says that for Deontay Wilder to be spoken about next to the likes of a Mike Tyson, he needs to fight Tyson Fury again, which is a rematch, yes, but it's a rematch that didn't have a conclusive ending first time, which is why there's a difference between him saying rematches don't count. He's talking about rematches where you won conclusively first time around. What's the point in rematching that guy? Whereas the Fury rematch, that's to settle a score, unfinished business. Yeah? There was no conclusive result. If he can come through that, knock out a guy like that, then we can start having those conversations about, you know, Wilder and Mike Tyson, all this kind of business. That's what George Foreman's saying in the interview. He's being realistic. He's being honest. He's not getting caught up in the hysteria that so many people in America have with regards to Wilder. Because in 10 title defenses, he has beaten nobody. Literally nobody. Nobody of any consequence in the heavyweight division in those 10 title defenses. So what the hell does that really mean? You know, again, this is what George Foreman is getting at. So Foreman ain't hating or nothing like that. He's just speaking the truth and being honest. Now, as far as does Deontay Wilder hit as hard as Mike Tyson? Well, when it comes to punching power, of course, the eye test matters. Yeah. But ultimately, unless you've been in the ring with a prime Mike Tyson and taken his punch, and also been in the ring with Deontay Wilder and taken his, you can never know 100% for sure. I strongly suspect that Deontay Wilder actually hits harder than Mike Tyson. Again, I don't know that for certain, but I strongly suspect that he does. Because unlike most boxing fans, I am completely convinced that there are loads of heavyweights throughout the course of history who hit harder than Mike Tyson. Not like one or two, loads of them. You see, punching power is similar to punch resistance in the sense that the fighters at the top are not always the ones who have the best chin in the division or the hardest punch in the division. No, not always. I mean, you've got a guy like Marius Wack in the heavyweight division who's got a better chin than AJ, better chin than Tyson Fury, better chin than Wilder, better chin than Povetkin, better chin than Dylan White, better chin than Joseph Parker. Marius Wack, he's got a better chin than all those guys. Did you see the Klitschko fight? The shot that put AJ on the deck, Marius Wack took like dozens of those shots. And went 12 rounds of Marius Wack's chin is incredible. But yet he's nowhere near as good as the fighters I just mentioned. Punching power can sometimes work in that same way. You can have a guy who hits extremely hard, but that's all he can do well. He might have a really weak chin. His defense might be weak. He might not be very skillful, poorly coordinated. And so unless an opponent stands still with their chin in the air and gives him the perfect opportunity, you know, to throw his shot with confidence, unless an opponent does that, then his tremendous punching power never really manifests in his fights above a certain level. Once he starts fighting skilled opponents who are hitting him back, even though he might hit harder than everybody in the world, he's not able to land his punch. He's more worried about defending himself. And a guy who I've brought up in the past would be someone like Darnell Boone. Darnell Boone dropped Kovalev in their first fight, had him in serious trouble according to all the fight reports. They still haven't released the footage of that fight on the internet. They buried that more than Al Heyman buried the Wilder Sconia's footage. Right. So they have buried that Sergey Kovalev Darnell Boone first fight. Yeah. Darnell Boone, a much smaller man than Kovalev, dropped him and hurt him bad. Darnell Boone knocked out Adonis Stevenson. Darnell Boone dropped and hurt Andre Ward far worse than anybody else did in Andre Ward's career. He hurt Ward more. He dropped him more heavily and hurt him more than Kovalev did. And again, Darnell Boone really is like a natural middleweight, even light middleweight. And he's dropping and hurting all these guys. Darnell Boone's just a journeyman. How can he be doing all this stuff? Because I keep telling you people, some of the hardest punchers who have ever stepped foot in a boxing ring are people you've never even heard of. They're not even necessarily very good fighters. They can just punch real hard. All right? With that being said, the idea that Mike Tyson is the hardest puncher to ever step foot in a boxing ring is absurd. It's absurd. Tyson was, of course, a very good puncher. We know that. But he was what I call a prolific puncher, which means somebody who's able to land their hard shots on a consistent basis, even at a high level. And being consistent like that, having the skill, the speed, the timing, the defense to get into positions, avoid the opponent's punches and land your own big shots. And of course, the element of surprise he had because he was so fast. The punches you don't see are the ones that are going to hurt you the most. All of those factors combined are what made Mike Tyson a prolific puncher. Yeah, but that doesn't mean he's the hardest puncher of all time. It's totally different. There are people in that conversation, again, who you've never even heard about. Okay? So I'm not going to sit here and tell you Deontay Wilder is as great a fighter as Mike Tyson, because that would be completely silly. He hasn't proved even a fraction of what he would need to prove in order to say he's as great as Mike Tyson. Okay? But just purely on punching power and the eye test, I suspect Deontay Wilder hits harder than Tyson. Yeah, they're around a similar kind of weight, interestingly enough. But Deontay Wilder is refined. And by the way, you see, with Wilder, with his punching power, it's all in the straight right hand. The right uppercut doesn't have the same kind of power on it. The left hook don't have the same kind of power on it. It's a straight right hand. Mike Tyson, of course, had power in both hands. The straight right, the overhand right, the right uppercut, the left hook, even, and you'd see this earlier on in Mike Tyson's career, a straight left from a southpaw stance. Tyson could get power into any punch, even jabs. So, to use a baseball terminology, I believe they call it someone who can bat from both sides of the plate. Is that what they call it? Tyson had power in everything he would throw. Deontay Wilder, it's only the right hand. But that right hand, based upon my eye test, based upon seeing all Mike Tyson's fights and most of Wilder's fights, I suspect Wilder's right hand is harder than any one punch Tyson throws. Yeah, it's a tremendous shot. I'm telling you, I've been saying for a long time, Deontay Wilder has got historically great punching power. I mean, Ernie Shavers, right? He wasn't a great fighter. I know a lot of people who want to put on the rose-tinted glasses will go and say, oh, Shavers was a great fighter. Shavers wasn't a great fighter. Shavers was a fringe contender, really. He did manage to fight for the world title a few times. Well, let me not say he's a fringe contender. He was a contender, okay? But he did take a lot of L's in his career. So he was a contender, but he wasn't a great fighter. Dangerous because he could punch like hell. Right? Tremendous puncher, Ernie Shavers, but not a great fighter. So will Deontay Wilder end up being like an Ernie Shavers? Somebody who has incredible, historically great punching power, but turns out not to be that great a fighter? Or will he be both? Will he turn out to be not only a historically great puncher, but a great fighter as well? We'll see. Once he starts fighting all the top guys in the division, if that happens, then we can make an assessment on that, because the jury's still out. It's still out for me, and it's still out for George Foreman. Tyson Fury was only 60% in that first Wilder fight. Wilder had been active. Fury came in, he'd only fought a couple of puddings, lost, 100 pounds in weight, and he went in there and had a draw with Deontay Wilder. Imagine what Tyson Fury is going to do at 100%. Let's see. And see how Wilder copes with it. If Wilder can get wins like that, let's say he can beat Fury, beat Ruiz or AJ, whoever has those other belts, beat Usyk, then we can start looking at Wilder and saying, okay, now this is what we're talking about when it comes to Hall of Fame resumes. This is somebody building a Hall of Fame resume. At the moment, Deontay Wilder isn't even remotely close to a Hall of Fame resume. Not even, that's absurd to say that Wilder is Hall of Fame worthy right now. Nonsense. Who's he beat to say that he's Hall of Fame worthy? Nobody. Literally beat no one. Hold your horses. Let him beat a few people first who are actually good and young, in their primes, near the top of the division. Let's see him beat some people before we start having these conversations. So, yeah, but as far as punching power goes, based on my eye test, I think he's up there with the hardest punchers of all time. But will he be a Shavers or will he be a Foreman? Will he be a Klitschko? Someone who isn't just a tremendous puncher, but is also a tremendous fighter. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. It's happening. I'm out. Join me on Patreon. I upload a minimum of 2 podcasts every single week, covering a wide variety of controversial topics, as well as live stream Q&A sessions. Take a look on screen right now at some of the podcasts I've produced so far. For just $3 a month, the equivalent of about £2 a month, you get access to all my new podcasts and my entire back catalogue of past podcasts, including my popular Confessions of a Nightclub Bouncer series. You can listen on your computer or on your smartphone or tablet by downloading the Patreon app from the Google Play Store or the App Store for free. The Patreon app also allows you to download each podcast in MP3. For less than the price of a cup of coffee, you get access to dozens of hours of exclusive content. It's easy to sign up, there's no contract, and you can cancel at any time. So come and join our community of free and critical thinkers by signing up with me here on Patreon today.